Mars tourists will be the same as present orbital space tourists and the first 500 or so suborbital tourists. Adventurous, very rich, and with a keen interest in fulfilling their dreams of visiting space and being more well known to society in general. At present, the only company that is serving space trips into Earth orbit is Space Adventures in Russia. Though Virgin Galactic is selling tickets very successfully for the suborbital Spaceship 2 vehicle, it is not yet fully developed. Space Adventures could be doing their job better and advertising harder, and their customer service could be improved. Their latest tourist, a Japanese businessman, sued them for cancellation of his flight after he had paid the $21 million. The cancellation was due to health reasons, but his case was dismissed and he did not get a refund. Good for the company profits in the short term, but bad for the company reputation in the long term. Space Adventures does at present offer a totally realistic tourist visit to orbit the moon for $100 million. This ticket has not been bought yet, obviously due to poor advertising again. There must be someone out there who wants it, can afford it, but does not know about it yet. With good publicity, advertising and marketing, you can sell anything. The best way to market frontier space tourism is not to just have a website, but to actually offer personal visits to potential customers from a marketing salesperson willing to go anywhere in the world to answer serious inquiries and to make detailed face-to-face presentation about the service offered to people who can afford this in the first place. The service of personal visits from a space voyage salesperson could be publicized in small advertisements in the kinds of magazines that very rich people read. They don't need to be too big and expensive because they would be too exotic not to be noticed by any potential customer in the first place. But very few people know about the opportunity to visit the moon now offered by Space Adventures. A Mars tourist mission, when it happens, can be a lot cheaper than the present chance to visit low Earth orbit because the break-even point is the development of fully reusable commercial launchers. Climbing Mount Everest is often described by the people who do it as formative and a life-changing experience, where the climbers feel like a different and better person after the achievement. Space tourism can have the same effect and still takes a huge amount of effort. Just not as much physical effort as climbing the world's highest point. But space tourism voyages should be marketed as life-altering experience to be remembered positively for the rest of the life of the visitor, because they are. Space tourism has been thought of as being something that one can feel a bit guilty about, considering how much poverty there is still in the world. However, this can be fixed with the space tourism company being a sponsor of some kinds of charity itself. Funding charities for the underprivileged by the space tourism company could be the best marketing trick in the universe for a space tourism corporation, and well worth the cost of relatively big but still affordable donations, if the contributions are made public enough. The giving of money to an aid organization by the Space Tourism Corporation will lift a subconscious ethical burden of deciding how charitable a potential space tourist should be themselves, on top of being a good and generous thing to do. The specific charities that should be targeted would be to help the poor and disadvantaged in the third world. A Mars tourist trip will take a lot of time to complete and should not be marketed like any other summer vacation, but as a kind of pilgrimage. Pilgrimages to the Holy Land by wealthy Europeans from as early as medieval times were happening, even though they took years. Time is money, and the biggest hurdle to getting people to visit Mars. This is why it might be preferable to market to individuals in early retirement. No fitness worries. People in their upper 60s who are multimillionaires and interested in space would normally be in very good health, and older and frailer people have traveled into space already. The normal lifespan of a millionaire is well above average. Your average Mars tourist might be fitter on their return to Earth with regular exercise on a long mission to and from Mars. Visits to the Martian surface by private individuals will not be called tourist missions for the first half of the century, as I've said. The historical parallel is again Antarctica, where commercial Antarctic tourism, even in 2010, is only for coastal nature visits to look at the whales. Complexity is something that should be avoided whenever possible in space tourism spacecraft. The simpler a well-made device is, the cheaper and longer lived it is, as well as having fewer components that can malfunction. Bigelow Aerospace seems to be producing inflatable modules that would make excellent components in Moon or Mars liners or any kind of extraterrestrial hotels. Simple, compact before inflation, lightweight, and robust. Mars liners should of course be as reusable as possible, and I'm estimating that it would be preferable to have the capacity for the housing of 7 passengers, 1 crew and 6 paying guests that have trained beforehand as a team. The team would need to be, of course, totally amicable, and so psychological testing is a necessity, unlike much shorter lunar surface visits. The captain of a Mars liner, in addition to being an aerospace engineer, leader and trainer, shall need a medical training and knowledge of psychiatry. Companies that are already getting successfully into the suborbital space tourism industry now are probably going to be involved. There can be joint investment by multiple companies in technology and Phobos tourist infrastructure sometimes though. The first suborbital space tourism companies will not stop there. They will go on to become the first orbital space tourism companies, and the first lunar surface bus tour companies, and the first Mars tourism companies. The biggest hurdle is escaping the gravity well of Earth. Spaceship 4, planned to be developed by Scale Composites, is expected to do this, becoming quite possibly the world's first fully reusable orbital launcher, and the technology will be constantly improving. Reaction Engines of the UK has just as good a chance of doing this. Space tourism is already happening, and Mars orbital tourism can happen almost in parallel with affordable lunar tourism. It is just the case of when it is profitable. The company seize the day and develop the technology while marketing the trips correctly. I would invest the time and money in it now if I was given the opportunity. I hope you enjoyed the movie, and thank you very much for your thoughtful and valued concentration.